Hello and welcome to Discourse 5 in the Level 3 series. So today I'm going to talk about ethics and impeccability. These two things are tools that will help you to extract yourself from negative karma, and they'll also give you the energy and the power that you need to extract yourself from the adverse vibrations within the matrix. Thus, the more ethical and impeccable you become, the more free you'll become, the more abundance you'll manifest, and the easier it'll be for you to continue moving upward on your spiritual journey toward where you want to go. So the reason why ethics and impeccability is such a necessity is because they are the only things really that will enable you to accumulate sufficient energy within your energy body in order to be able to perceive and integrate higher dimensional realities. Now, the reason why that is because if you're not ethical, basically what you're doing is you are probably violating or misusing the energies of another being, and in terms of higher dimensional laws, that's not actually permitted. It's one of the things it's necessary to resolve in order to extricate yourself from karma. If you're kind of involved in the misuse or abuse of other people's energies, then of course that's unethical, but at the same time you're also plugged into the vibration of conflict and power struggle, and naturally those dynamics are not conducive to having a more deeper, intimate relationship with Source. So being ethical isn't very popular out there in the mainstream. That also explains why many people in the mainstream have trouble grasping spiritual concepts, certainly the very advanced ones. It's because their energies are still caught up in unethical behavior. Either people are doing unethical behavior to them, or they are doing the unethical behavior themselves, or it can be a combination of those two things. But all of that has to be resolved in order to purify your energy body sufficiently so it can hold a massive amount of source energy. So being unethical basically creates karma. It plugs you into the vibration of karma, and it will also sooner or later cause massive energy leaks in your energy body. That energy leakage, again, it will prevent you from attaining a high enough vibration. So the practice of ethical purity will also extract yourself from karma, because you'll become immune to the energies of karma, simply because the two aren't a vibrational match. Now, if you do some deeper reflection as to what's going on with humanity, you'll come up against the matter of immorality, not immortality, but immorality. It's basically many beings within the collective are behaving in immoral or ethically questionable ways. Now, it doesn't have to be a judgment, it can just be an observation. When you just observe and witness what's going on with humanity, you'll see all those kind of behaviors going on. You don't want to interfere with that. Instead, you just witness what's going on. You can use that as a mirror as to how not to conduct yourself, and as a result, you can gravitate yourself out of the inevitable suffering that would naturally ensue if you continue to go along that path. Now, it's pretty obvious to most people on the advanced path that humanity is sleepwalking itself to a big disaster of some kind. We don't want to get caught up in negativity, but we want to have the wisdom and awareness to recognize that. And the only way we can avoid having to participate in the collective suffering of humanity in a collapse or disaster scenario is to practice the path of ethics and impeccability. So ethics is about pure conduct. Impeccability, which is discussed more in Carlos Castanada's books, I know some of you have been studying those. Impeccability basically means using your energy wisely, and it's very connected with ethics, because if you don't use your energy wisely, then what will happen is you can become subservient to unethical energies, or unethical energies can come into your life and cause disruption. Now, to be able to practice impeccability, which is knowing how to manage your energy properly, it's actually impossible to do that until you've done the ethics bit first. If you haven't done the ethics bit first, you won't have sufficient awareness to be able to contemplate what you're doing with your energies. The process will be too unconscious. The only way you can become conscious and aware of it is to attain sufficient energy in your being, sufficient energy and vibration. The only way you can do that is to purify yourself on the ethical level. Now, ethical purity is like a universal safeguard to prevent people from accessing the higher planes that have impure intent. If that safeguard wasn't there, imagine what would happen to the purity of 5D if all kinds of beings engaged in unethical behaviour could somehow go there and access it. You'd have people blowing up planets and stars just on a whim, just like that, and one person coming from a place of hatred could go up there, access the vibrational source and channel that energy in a very destructive way, and they could actually destroy a star or a planet and wipe out millions of people. Now, fortunately, there is that safeguard in place so it doesn't happen. So basically, the higher planes are simply inaccessible to you until you have a degree of ethical purity. So ethical purity is about moral living, and there's some basic precepts which are based upon the Buddhist way of conducting themselves, and some of these precepts can be very useful to reflect upon so that you can work on developing a deeper ethical purity in yourself. Now, the chances are you know what they all are, but I just go through them again, the main ones that are relevant to this path, so you can reflect and see if there's anything in your energy field that might need to be resolved with that. So number one thing is, naturally you don't harm other beings in this dimension. You don't do anything in this dimension which harms another being or damages their life energy. You know, if you're on a path toward ascension, immortality, self-realization, etc., what we don't want to do is to get caught up in the reverse of that. You know, the antithesis of immortality is like death and destruction. So naturally you don't do anything to another being that can cause harm, because it's degrading the life energy, and it's actually taking a chunk of energy out of their aura, and that reduces their vibration and pushes that being slightly or significantly down, depending on what you do, toward the vibration of death. So if you're doing anything like that, any kind of harm, naturally that can't happen. It's going to block your own process, and it's going to cause you negative karma. Now, it's pretty obvious, and the chances are many of you aren't actually harming beings in the outer. Now, the flip side of that, in order to be able to perfect impeccability, you need to be able to do the flip side, and the flip side is being able to defend yourself from beings that want to do you harm. If you pull that off as well, then you've basically cleared that level. Now, the next ethical thing to consider is the matter of truth. So naturally, any kind of lying and deception is out. Lying to other people, lying to yourself, deception, fraud, manipulation, control, cheating, anything like that. If you do that in the outer, again, you're creating karma, and that will hurt you later. Trying to take a shortcut through cheating or deception rarely works. It will cause you a vibratory backslide, a karmic crash, and then it will make you walk the much longer way around to get back to where you were. So there's no advantage to be had in this dimension through cheating or deception. If you do that, and you progress further on the path and continue to remain attached to cheating and deception, the universe will act as a very strong mirror, and past a certain point it won't permit it, and you'll come up against a massive blockage. Until you purify that aspect of yourself, it will be impossible to proceed further, and instead you're most likely to backslide. So again, most of us here, all of us here, I suspect, are in a very good place of integrity. So I doubt any of you are cheating in ways such as that. But again, for us, the serious spiritual students, the more important thing is the flip side, because the chances are we've got sufficient integrity anyway, otherwise you wouldn't be aligned to working with me. But the flip side is to make sure that you become immune to cheating, lying, manipulation, deception for the whole work. So you need to strengthen up your energy field so you become immune to that form of unethical behavior, and again, that will enhance your ability to practice impeccability, knowing where and when to put your energy. Again, if you're being subjected to any kind of cheating or manipulation, you haven't cleared that out of your field, that entanglement is going to prevent you from having enough awareness, and it's going to prevent you from being able to contemplate what to do with your energy. So those are the first two things. Don't harm beings, and don't do anything that's connected with cheating, lying and deception. So the next one we have is the matter of sexual misconduct. Naturally, you don't want to do anything connected with sexuality that's harmful to another being. Now, sex in itself isn't negative. You don't necessarily do something wrong by having sex. Sex in itself is a neutral act. It's basically the emotions and the karmas that get imprinted onto it that determines whether it's positive or negative. So the choice whether to pursue sexual relationships or not is a very personal choice for each individual, and only each individual can know what their true path is with that. But when it comes to sexual misconduct, the things to definitely avoid are manipulating people into having sex with you, using people for sex, naturally anything like rape, prostitution, anything to do with pornography, naturally that's all out. Sexual misconduct also includes fantasizing about other beings in a sexual manner where they haven't consented to that happening. That's actually a form of astral rape, and some guys that get caught up in pornography can have the temptation to do that. They can have the temptation to indulge in lots of masturbation, and during that masturbation they conjure up fantasies of people they know and imagine themselves having sex with them. Again, from a spiritual mastery perspective, this is sexual misconduct, and again, one would work to not do that in one's life. Once you've perfected that matter, you'll also find you have a lot more clarity in the astral. So again, the chances are we're not doing any of those things. If we are, we can just work on them and resolve them as quickly as we can. But the flip side of it, again, which is more important, the impeccability path, is the ability to become free from the harmful effects of sexual misconduct. So you can't let other people do that to you wherever possible. And once you have that defense against sexual energies that are predatory in the outer in any manner, once you've got that out of your field, then again you can have an additional energetic boost, and that will give you more awareness. So far I've had the matter of not harming other beings, not lying, not committing sexual misconduct. Now there's a few other things we can talk about in terms of ethics. You just need to quickly sit in silence and bring up the other two. I'm not quite sure what they are for now. Okay, yeah, I've got it. The next one is the matter of stealing. It's slightly connected with cheating, but also it's a bit different. So cheating and stealing can occur together, or stealing can occur separately. So stealing is about taken and not given. So naturally, on the path of spiritual mastery, you want to aspire to never ever steal. If you steal, it will give you karma. Stealing is basically taking the not given, taking from another something that doesn't belong to you. And even though it might look like you're just stealing a material item, for example, what you're actually doing is stealing someone's life force energy by doing that. So that's a gross violation of another person's energy field. So again, you can't ever steal if you want to make serious advancement on the spiritual path. So not stealing also includes not stealing someone's money, not stealing someone's possessions, not stealing someone's time, not doing anything that deceives someone in such a way that you can then steal something from them, because that is a violation of their energy bodies. So to become immune to stealing, again, that's the gateway to impeccability. Make sure that people don't steal from you. If people do steal from you, you do have to hold them accountable. Only by holding them accountable and standing up for yourself do you have a chance to free yourself from the energy of theft. And again, that's the flip side. That will enable you to become more ethically pure in your life, and it also enable you to become more impeccable. So the final thing relates to the abuse of substances, and naturally alcohol and the abuse of other substances falls into this list. So alcohol is a classic example. If you look out there in the world, lots of people drink alcohol. Alcohol is a duller of awareness. It will dull your awareness significantly. It will poison your body. It will degrade your energy, and it will prevent you from accessing higher dimensional planes of reality. And again, there's another reason why people in the outer as a whole struggle with spiritual mastery, simply because the energy of alcohol is an incompatible energy with regard to that end aim of spiritual mastery. A lot of people do drink alcohol, and in that case, don't get caught up in judgments about it. Just notice and witness what that does, and just make different choices, and you can free yourself out of that karma. So naturally you keep your body as pure as possible. You don't poison it, you don't abuse it with alcohol, tobacco, anything else. You keep your body and your mind as pure as possible. Later in the course I'll talk about the psychedelic medicines. In my opinion, you can use some of those medicines respectfully, and you can use them in such a way that it doesn't degrade your awareness. That does require a significant degree of discernment and awareness to be able to find a balance there with that. But I'll cover that later on in this course. For now, suffice to say, you don't want to be degrading your awareness with any kind of harmful substance. So those are the main things to consider when you're working to develop ethical purity. The chances are, if you've worked with all of the preceding things as I mentioned, you will be ethically pure enough to be able to move from the practice of ethics, which is the first stage, to the practice of impeccability. So impeccability is all about what you do with your energy. Now, once you start walking the path of spiritual mastery, in a way you're like a warrior, you're like a spiritual warrior, not like in a fighting sense, but you're taking on the struggle to become fully self-realized, and becomes fully self-realized, it requires a massive amount of energy input. The amount of energy that you will need to become fully self-realized may be 50 or 100 times greater than the average human being. So you need to accumulate a massive energetic storehouse in your lower chakras, and the only way you can possibly pull that off in this reality is first of all to be totally ethical, so you don't lose the energy and make karma. Secondly, once you've got the awareness, once you've got the additional energy, you then have to focus on awareness onto what you're actually doing with it. The Buddha spoke about three stages of enlightenment: the practice of love, the practice of wisdom. Those two things create the experience of enlightenment. When you have a balance between wisdom and love, the two combined will give you an understanding of and a perception of source that will elevate you considerably and propel your journey forward. But the third stage of the path that the Buddha referred to was the use of energy, and this is what Carlos Castaneda calls impeccability. It's one thing to become enlightened in this reality, it's another thing entirely to be enlightened in this reality and to be able to handle that in a wise and conscious manner. It's possible to become enlightened or integrated with source and then fall out of that. It's possible to have a fall from grace, it's possible to experience backslides on the spiritual path, and once you've reached a certain vibration of awareness of source, the chances are any backslide that you then experience in your life will be down to what you're doing with your energy. Now, impeccability is a tricky one because we don't know what the rules are in the beginning, and that's part of the karmic disadvantage. We don't want to see ourselves as a victim to it, but it's just the way the karmic system is set up, in that you can't know what the rules are until you're highly evolved on the path. In the beginning, you are going to make blunders, you're going to put your energy in certain places, you're going to see how putting your energy in certain places will have different effects, and as a result of witnessing what's happening, you can then redefine your approach so that you don't cause negative effects in the outer. Once you have a lot of energy in your being, once you're vibrating with the energy of source and enlightenment, if you're not careful, you're going to become a big magnet for energies that would try and take or steal that from you. Now, this is where the ethics comes in handy, because if you're living a totally ethical life, that ethical purity will actually give you a massive amount of protection later if people come to you, if beings come to you, try and steal, manipulate or play around with your energies. When you've got a high standard of ethical purity, your aura is massively strengthened, and anyone trying to come into your field doing that to you will be repelled by the energies of source, and they're then going to experience a massive misfortune elsewhere. So you are going to become protected from those adverse energies in the outer that can harm you. And this is ultimately what the last stage is about. It's about what you do with your energy. It's about being discerning. It's about being wise. It's about being aware and just looking consciously whether where you're going to put your energy would be a wise place to put it. If it isn't, you don't have to put your energy there. Now, in order to become fully impeccable, you're going to have to transcend a lot of lower human emotions connected with guilt, attachment, false pity, all these kind of things. The emotions can seriously trip you up if you're not careful, and that's another additional benefit of being ethical. When you're ethical in your life, you have the emotional purity. The emotional maturity becomes grounded in your being, and then you have a greater wisdom that comes in from the source. It kind of integrates with your emotional purity. The two things combined create a very strong state of vibration, and that vibration will become immune to all kinds of lower human emotions that simply seek to drain you. The truth of the matter is there's lots of people in the world that are very energy deficient. There's nothing wrong with that as such. It's simply a product of their choices, so we don't need to get concerned about judgments, or we don't need to get afraid. It's simply the karmic sphere of learning doing its thing. Everyone's experiencing exactly what they need to experience. But at the same time, the truth that many beings are in a state of energetic deficiency can trip you up on the emotional level, because a lot of these people, they want lots of care, attention, they want an abundance of compassion, an abundance of kindness, and all of those things require a vast amount of emotional energy to give someone. Now, if that person is involved in some kind of unethical behaviour, or they're not wanting to fix their own life, if you then pour lots of emotional energy into that, you're going to deplete yourself. And that's one of the biggest dangers of the path, is becoming emotionally depleted by giving that emotional energy out into the wrong places. So impeccability is tied up with this matter of not casting pearls before swine. I've mentioned it in the forum, and I've written about it in a couple of the books. Basically, this means you don't give valuable insights or energies away, and that includes emotional energies. If you're in a very strong and supercharged emotional state because you've just had like a massive experience with source, or you've had a very strong mystical experience or a deep shamanic journey, you're going to be supercharged with very powerful and positive emotion. If you just cast that out into the world without sufficient discernment and awareness, you're going to trade that massive amount of positivity for a pile of negative and unpleasant karmic energy. You don't want to do that. And if you keep casting pearls before swine, if you keep giving valuable insights or your valuable energies away into the wrong places, then you can become abused. You can't have that. Abuse is not acceptable in the spiritual path, so you don't want to create more and more opportunities that to happen. Instead, the practice of ethics and impeccability enables you to withdraw from that aspect of the matrix which is draining and abusive, and as a result those abusive energies will leave, and then you'll be able to stand in your own strength in much greater power. And this is the fruit of ethics and impeccability. The two combined will give you a lot of power, and power is what you need on this path. Power is in spiritual power, not power that you see out there in the world, like politicians and governments. That's not quite power as such. Yes, they appear powerful, but their power is illusory, and the reason why that is because their power is dependent on controlling other beings. Now, it's not possible on the path of spiritual mastery to entertain any kind of control. You can't control people, and you can't allow other people to control you. If you're caught up in any one of those things, you still get caught up in karma. If you're caught up in karma, you lose energy. If you lose energy, you don't have power. So it's not power as you see out there, it's power as in internal power, spiritual power, the power within. And that power is true because it's unshakable and it's not dependent on anything in the outer, it's all within you. And once you have the ethics and impeccability in place, the control crap that's going on the outer will no longer come into your life. You won't experience intrusions anymore where beings come in and try to impose their will upon you. Once you get to that stage, you're pretty much free because you have this power here, and as you continue your spiritual practice, it will continue to accumulate. You'll have a big power build up, and it's this power build up that you want in the lower chakras if you're going to manifest something big in your life. So if you want to manifest a big hit of money, or you want to manifest a big life change, or a new relationship, or a new job, or any other situation that appears to exist on a more favourable and higher reality, the way you get there is to simply accumulate power in your energy body, true power. Once you accumulate energy and power, the thing that you're actually looking to manifest will naturally show up with ease. But if you try and manifest first without the power in place, then it's not going to work. So this will be a clue when it comes to manifesting. If you're trying to manifest something in your life and it's not happening, then instead of focusing on the outer, trying to make it happen, trying to force it, instead bring it back to yourself and ask yourself two things. Am I being ethical, and am I being impeccable with my energy? If the answer to any of those two questions is no, then I would work on that first and then go back into the outer and work on manifesting what you want. If you don't have those two foundations in place, it's going to be very difficult to attract something in your life, or when you do attract something into your life, it's going to actually become unfavorable because you might import additional karma into your field because something's not cleared up in yourself. So when it comes to the abundance on the spiritual path, again, there's a really high bar here. If you want to have a spiritual path, if you want to have lots of time in order to be able to pursue it, and you want the money as well, it's like a high vibratory bar there. It's quite a lot to ask for, but yes, you are deserving of it. There's no reason why the universe can't give that to you. And if you clear your energy field out of unethical behaviors, and if you redefine what you're doing with your energy so that there's no losses or leakages anywhere, then the two things combined will make a cohesive power ball, so to speak, in your energy field. And that power ball will be very strong, it will vibrate intensely. Is that state of power to draw to you the situations that you want in your life to build a stronger and more conducive life for the purpose of spiritual practice. And this is why many people don't appear to evolve so much in terms of higher understanding. It's because that power isn't in place, and it's because the impeccability isn't there and the ethics isn't there. If those two things are there, you get the power gives you the energy gives you the insight, the energy gives you the inspired actions, the energy gives you the abundance, the energy gives you the protection, the peace. So as you can see, the fruits of doing the work of ethical purification are great. It may not appear so appealing in the beginning, but if you have the wisdom and wherewithal to realize that ethics is important. When you do purify yourself on the ethical level, you can have much more energy, you can have much more awareness, you can have much more clarity, much more wisdom, and with all of that you're going to see your life in a much more expanded manner, and from that expanded manner you're going to be able to reflect upon what you're doing with your life, and you'll be able to make adjustments and changes if required in order for you to continue to uphold a high vibration of energy. Okay, so I'll leave it here today for this discourse, and I'll speak to you again in discourse 6. Free Spirit out.